What's up, guys? I hope you're doing well. So I kind of wanted to finish the week off this Friday on a kind of a interesting history note or whatever, just something I thought of while I was researching some of the other stuff that talked about this week. Um and just kind of wondering just like, about the building of the New York Fed cuz it just looks different in a way. I don't know. Because I think it's called the Eccles building, the one in Washington D.C., that big white one, kind of marble or something. I don't know, but anyways, whereas this one's a lot differently, and it reminds me of back in high school when I was just obsessed with like Assassin's Creed, and so I've played the Ezio trilogy at least like 4 times, all the way through. Like did the 100% on everything. Um, when I was back then and it reminded me a lot of some of the buildings you'd see in there. And I found this post on the New York Fed's website because remember the reserve banks have their own websites too, um, not just like the one for the FOMC or the main Federal Reserve or whatever. Um, but this one I found basically about how the architecture and stuff, and so like it is exactly what I was remembering from playing Assassin's Creed was it says Florentine banking houses, right? And so it's based a lot out of 15th century Florence, in Italy, which is exactly where the Ezio trilogy for Assassin's Creed takes place. Time, everything. You spend most of your time in Florence. I think in the first one in the trilogy. Yeah, in the first one when you first start, because that's where he's from. Um, but anyways, I was like, because this architecture looks familiar, and that's kind of one of my weird. I don't know if it's kind of the weird interest, like kind of off to the side, and not weird, unrelated to some of my other interests. Is architecture for some reason. I just think it's cool. Not something I'm going to like pursue a career in, kind of cool, but like something that is like if I go to a museum or something, I'll kind of look and spend time reading the stuff about that because I just think it's cool how we started like the different designs and why we built things certain ways and stuff like that. But anyways, um, so yeah, that's basically what the New York Fed, what the original building was based off of. And basically, its first day of being open was November 16th, 1914. And it had a staff of 7 officers and 85 clerical employees. Where basically that most of them came from other like New York banks and stuff like that. Um, and they received almost 100 million in deposits from 479 commercial banks. Um, and then basically, it seems the entry of the United States into World War One the following year added to the responsibilities of the young bank. It helped finance U.S. military expenditures by selling and distributing government bonds and by becoming the fiscal agent of the federal government, which I just thought maybe it's different from how it is now. Because nowadays, like I mean, the Fed monetizes the debt. So I don't know what they mean by fiscal agent. If they mean like the bank is doing the lending specific, like if that if the New York Fed branch at the time was doing the lending themselves, or if it's like, okay, they buy the bonds or they just monetize the debt like they do now, and the money goes into the TGA, and then the Treasury does the spending. Um, I don't know if it was different back then. Um, so yeah, basically just, and then they've renovated it and stuff like that. Obviously, it's kind of the original plans and math bunch of stories. And it was like 30 or 21 or something like that. Um, it's a 800,000 square foot, and then basically just like this ain't like a lot of wrought iron that you saw a lot in Italian Renaissance and stuff like that. Um, Seems like the architect who was there did a lot of work for Harvard, Yale, also Vanderbilt's mansion and stuff like that. Um, but the New York Fed took up most of the iron, like more iron than all of those. And then borrowed a lot of stuff, a lot of concepts from Florentine palaces in Italy. Um, it's kind of a picture of construction, as you can see. It looks, I mean, that's exactly what you'd see out of Assassin's Creed. So that's in 1923. Um, and this is what I thought was kind of cool is the bank had a triple tiered vault system that was lowered onto the bedrock foundation, which they had to dig like what they said it's somewhere in here. It was like 100 and there it is 117 feet below street level, right? To put the vaults in. Um, and they had to put it on like the foundation, like bedrock, because I mean, all that weight from just volts, because that's going to weigh a lot, um, right? It has to support all that weight. And so let's see, a 9-foot door and the door frame together is says 90 plus. That's a 230 pounds, or I'm sorry, tons. That's it. And then there's the golden side. And I had 122 separate compartments. Um, yeah. The lowest vault level was the deepest basement in Manhattan, descending 80 feet below street level and 50 feet below sea level. That's just, I think it's cool. But anyways, it's still like 230 something tons. It's just, that's a lot of metal. Um, but anyways, it was completed in 1924, and it was the largest bank structure in the world at the time. And then they had some problem with speculators buying up buildings beside it when they tried to expand, stuff like that. Talking in there. And the whole thing was completed in July 1935 for a cost of 21 million at the time, right? Kind of a picture of the inside or part of the inside. Um, they had to do a remodeling process. They talked a little bit about how the Fed was a part of 9/11, where it was pretty close to the World Trade Center, and they had like how the employees and stuff had to stay inside the bank for a while because they were worried about debris and stuff from the outside, and then they eventually had to like evacuate. I think based upon because they thought the like the neighboring buildings might collapse as well. Um, but basically, they kept trading the entire time. Or so through trading in government security. Though trading in government securities did effectively stop on September 11th and 12th. I'm sorry, settlement continued, not trading. And so they were still settling those transactions. And the basic dollar payment system never closed. So, although the money and foreign exchange markets were seriously disrupted, they also remained open within 48 hours of the attack on the World Trade Center. Markets were once again serving their crucial function in the nation's economy. So, kept going through the whole thing. Let's see. Um, yeah, they had some employees stayed to carry out essential functions. Um, and then they had also like staff in other places at and safety still working. And then basically they did a restoration in the late 2000s, so 2010ish, just kind of getting everything back to where it was. Dealing with contractors and stuff. Pretty much all they talked about here. See the cost of the bank's floor by floor modernization program started in 1995 are projected to be approximately 180 million over a 15 plus year period, right? So basically just modernizing everything. Like I think I read somewhere in here they had problems with like asbestos and like all the building things that, and also just like, I mean, it's an old building. After 100 years, it's probably going to need some renovation. Like they talked about new flooring, new like completely redoing floors, stuff like that. Let's see. Yeah, and they had to do a lot of expanding too, because before they had like 100 and something employees, whatever it was I said before, it was like seven. Let's go up and see. Um, yeah, 7 officers and 85 clerical employees. So that's what, 92 employees. And you come down here and like in 2010-ish, is that the area we're talking about? Yeah, they had 100 staff in one location and now more than 3,000 employees in 4 buildings. So they expanded quite a bit. Um, the period of 2007 to 2010 was unprecedented for the amount of work and activity within the bank as a result of the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. As the New York Fed responded to staff expansion and workspace needs to accommodate approximately 600 staff hired during the crisis to support increased demand in markets, bank supervision, and other areas of operation. Construction was finishing on other parts of the building. Um, so yeah, back kind of a side note, I guess, in a way. Um, Dealing with all the regulations and stuff that came out of the GFC 2008 and everything else. You need to hire people to do that. It's kind of the same. The same thing happens when you put more regulations on other banks. So not only did the Fed have to hire more people, so did commercial banks and credit unions and other things, the entities that are now being regulated to a greater extent, because you have to put together committees and you have to all this reporting and stuff like that that the banks had to do now that they didn't have to do before. Now they have to hire more people to do. Um, it's just something to keep in mind. Not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, just saying you have to keep it in mind. Um, the building was occupied and operational the whole time throughout the modernization efforts, and it cost approximately 43.6 million on construction. Oh, just in general, and then it breaks it down into construction, design, and furniture. I think that's probably just only the 2 floors. But anyways, the cost for the total project were 487 per square foot, and for offices on the 10th floor were 353 per square foot. So there's that. And then basically, let's see, the 5 guiding principles of the bank's restoration committee, and just a bunch of whatever. Maintain the bank's image of public integrity and strength and stability. Okay, integrity. Let's look at. I mean, it looks almost like a Florentine garrison in a way. I don't know, but I kind of like whenever I think of like the whole integrity thing and like I guess transparency, the first thing that comes to mind is the Reichstag in Berlin, with like the whole like glass ceiling or whatever, like the dome that you can see down into the forget what they call it. I was there in high school, like the summer between my freshman and sophomore year. I was an exchange student for the summer, or for like a month and a half ish or so, whatever it was in Berlin, and that was we went there and it was pretty cool. But that's really what I remember. And what I think about, especially with like in this case with banks and public integrity and stuff like that. And then you have to have your typical, let's see, carry on the overall design. But I mean, it's a restoration committee. I'd hope it'd be pretty self-explanatory. Modernize and restore. There you go. But anyways, it's just kind of a side note, I guess, from what I normally do for the videos and such. So I just thought it'd be cool to go over some of the history and the construction of one of the actual banks, even specifically the New York one, because that's kind of the, I don't want to say it's the center one, but that's the one that people tend to think of because that's where like the trading desk, and everything else is housed. You have the president for the New York Fed is the one who's always on the FOMC, stuff like that. It kind of seems like the head honcho for that sort of, from that respect. But anyways, I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you on the next one.